settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devin, and today we got Cory Boehs with us. He is the owner of Cool Foams LLC, and honestly, his story and just knowing him from the RBO network and stuff, but his story is actually really unique. So I'm excited to dive into it. I don't want to give any spoiler alerts, but Cory, thank you for taking the time to come on today.
My pleasure.
So how did you
Glad
get
to be
into
here.
how did you get into business? Let's start there. I know your story dives a little crazier, but let's start there. How'd you get into business?
Yeah, so I've got to back up a little bit before that. So I was born and raised in a very conservative group, and part of that was there was no higher education. So after 8th grade, I joined my dad in his building company and started helping. At 14, I was not doing a lot of leadership roles, but started framing houses, building things with my hands, and did that. And so I was around business and watching my dad do that from a very early age, and started my business I think I was 24. So, yeah.
Okay. So, so your dad was inspiration to you,
Yeah.
kind of getting into the entrepreneurial space?
Absolutely.
And how long did he have his business?
He still has it.
Oh,
So, he's got a construction company. And then when I was about 22, he started a lumber yard, and that's turned into multiple locations, and he's doing that now too. So,
oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship, as you know, is already tough, and to be able to grow and live the long lasting tail of time in the entrepreneurial space is already a huge accomplishment. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's dive into. I know within that story, you were in a cult, and stuff. So let's dive into that. How did that go about? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So cult is short for culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a broad spectrum of what that is, but I was born and raised a Mennonite, and Mennonite is also a spectrum. We were like what I would call Amish light. So we had cars and things like that, but we didn't have radio or TV. But yeah, I was born into that. So was my wife. We got married at 20. I was 20 and she was 21. And so that's the life that we knew. We went to the little private schools that they have. That system doesn't allow marriage outside of that system. And so all of our friends were in that. So
you said Amish light, almost like an app.
Yeah. Amish light.
Okay. So that's interesting. Like, when you said cult earlier, like I was thinking, like I immediately went to like Charles Manson and and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, what the heck? So that's interesting though, because obviously it's a certain way of life, and I'm sure that religion has to do with part of it, right?
Yeah.
But is there a reason that the cult or culture was built? Is there a certain like ideology?
Yeah, so if you go back to the 1500s, that was a time of the Reformation. The Catholic Church was in conflict with some of the new reformers, and there was some of those groups are more widely known. But Menno Simons was one of the reformers at that point, and that's where, like Mennonite, that's where that comes from. And the tenets of that faith was, not big government, not our kingdom is not of this world, simple people, we don't fight wars, things like that. And so that caused a lot of conflict back then and through the ages. But that's kind of where that religion or ideology has its roots.
Okay. And so with that, is its own religion, or is it, do you
it would fall under the Christian umbrella. They Bible believing, they interpret, it's just a matter of how they interpret the Bible, basically.
Okay. So, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, you and your wife met in in that culture, you know, and got married within the culture and stuff like that, are you guys still currently like practicing, I guess, or living within that culture? Or
We are not. So and again, not all, I want to make this clear, not all Mennonites follow this teaching, but the denomination or sect of Mennonites that we come from, they take it very literally that when there's only one way out of their belief system, and that's through excommunication. So, families won't sit with people that are expelled. They won't shake their hands, things like that. So, I mean, you're either in it or you're out. And what we saw there, but then there were people that couldn't conform to the rules, and they would kind of hang around that culture. And that is not been our story. We've moved on, and in making a clean break, as it were, we've got a relationship with my family that works. But it's taken some time.
So is your parents and your family still in the culture?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. So what was that deciding factor for you guys then?
So my wife was first. She got to the point she didn't believe that, that there's things like, this group of 24,000, 25,000 people, they're God's one true church, and that's who God smiles down on, and things like that. And she couldn't accept that anymore. And just some of the teachings, like she wore a head covering, little black head covering, and homemade dresses and things like that. And she just didn't believe it anymore. It took me longer. But what I realized was, I've always been a big music guy. Like at 15 years old, I snuck out and bought me a Walkman, and I had tapes and CDs and stuff like that. And music was a thing. And I knew that I wasn't following the guidelines of the church. And then my business was actually a big part of this, because then also in that, there was just always this us versus them mentality that, they're worldly people and they don't know God really, and things like that. And man, I started my business and started interacting with more people outside of my culture. And I'm like, man, there's some good people that are just trying to do what's right. Like, this isn't making sense. And I got to the point that, I'm like, I'm not really living this. And if I'm going to stay here, I'm living a lie. And I am not okay with being out of my integrity and living a lie basically what it boiled down to me. So I got to the point that my biggest fear was hurting my family, my brothers and sister, and things like that. And came to the point that for the choice, or for the good of my little family. But yeah, I just got this download of what life would look like, conforming to the outward appearances, but not believing it, and just how damaging that was going to be to me and my wife and my kids. And that was kind of my breaking point.
So you guys already had kids and stuff when you guys made this decision. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that must have been like an interesting time, because both of you guys having grown up in this culture and having a certain instilled values and instilled beliefs, and not knowing what the other might say, for that first person that wants to take that step out.
Yeah.
Who was the one that kind of broke the ice and wanted to?
I wish I could say it was me, but my wife. Well, okay, I guess that the actual taking the first step and saying something was me, but I knew subconsciously, that she was not bought in anymore. And I had this whole elaborate plan in my head, because I wasn't ready to leave. And I had this whole elaborate plan of how I was going to divorce her and stay in the church. And I knew that I could never get married again, or be in a relationship with another woman. But I was going to do that because I still felt like I was in the right place. But then she just kept quiet for like 6 months and kind of let me come to it on my own. And one night we were laying in bed, or we were sitting in bed, and I'm like, Suzanne, I can't do this anymore. And she just goes, oh. She's like, I thought you'd never say that. And she's like, well, what do we do with the kids? And but what about schooling? And we just, that night we stayed up most of the night and just hammered out a plan of how we were going to do it, and then went for it. And it was brutal. I'm not going to lie. Like it was hard, but so worth it.
No, I
So
mean
worth it.
that's awesome. I think there's a couple key things are there. One, I mean, people think it's hard to move from one state to another. You moved and basically had to cut all ties to a degree, and luckily you were able to build a relationship with your family up to a mutual, respect kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I think the biggest thing that you said was that, you already had this plan of you were going to basically, divorce and cut ties and stuff. And I think in a lot of relationships, not even as significant of the issue that you're talking about, but a lot of relationships, people tend to have their side and will just keep on hammering that side into the other person instead of letting them come to it on their own. Because I think that was a crucial moment for your wife. If she would have been persistent for those 6 months and just, repetitive telling you like, we're going to do it, like I'm going to do it, and all of a sudden that would almost push you over the edge of saying, you know what, then we're getting a divorce. But I think that was a huge thing that she kind of let you have your space and, let you make your own decision, come to your rationalization on your end, because then it's something that you truly wanted to do and it wouldn't have felt like you regretted it later on. Because my next question was going to be like, if you guys got married in this culture and it's a way that you guys had to, get married within the culture and stuff, like, did you guys ever contemplate once you got out of the culture, like splitting up? But now I think I kind of answered that question to a degree with, how you guys left it together.
Yeah. So we left it together. So we left in 2013. And then the next few years, there was a lot of things that we worked through, but in 2019, it kind of came to a head and we realized we had a lot more work to do. We were in conflict all the time. And, because like this integrity is a big, big deal to me. And, with that culture, very, very from the top down, this is the way we're going to do things. This is okay. This is not. And it was all lined out. And so we went through a real period from, I'd say 2017 to 19 of removing ideas, beliefs, and things like that. And then, she's coming out of that going, well, I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need you. And, I'm like curling up inside, like, and then also like that was hurtful, but yet I'm like, man, this, marriage life is so totally different than the way I was taught. What do I actually want? And we were in real conflict in 19 and 20 over that. But you know what? We've with therapy, with closed eye sessions, with personal development, things like that, we've worked through it. And I believe love is a choice more than an emotion. And yeah, we say I love you to each other, and we do. I love her with everything in me. But more what we use is I choose you, because we can control that. Like if it's just a feeling and she doesn't make the bed or I don't, or something like that, well, yeah, I don't love you anymore, right? Or you let things fester. We have a choice in this stuff.
Right. No, I think that's awesome. And that is such a huge thing that people get into relationship, and entrepreneur or not, relationships are hard, right? And when you're in that honeymoon phase, that first year or even year two, and everything's all fine and dandy, you're excited and all that kind of stuff, like that does start to dwindle out. Like, especially when you get married and you're living with the person, you see them every day, every single moment is with them. Like the unknown isn't really unknown anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so love is a choice and it is constant work, just like anything. But I think that in your situation, going through something traumatic, and I know traumatic usually is a bad thing, but traumatic just, meaning that it's a huge change, an abrupt change. You guys having this traumatic and abrupt change in complete lifestyles and being able to work through it together is going to make that relationship only that much stronger. you know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
if you guys can get through that, I mean, I don't know what you guys couldn't work through.
Yep. I totally agree with that. We're living a life and in a relationship that neither one of us ever dreamt was possible.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah, I
It's
mean,
it's
you got
worth the work.
yeah,
That's I've got it right here on my computer. It's worth the work.
100. I mean, you just got to trust the process. It's worth the
Yep.
work. And at the end of the day, the sun wouldn't be so valuable if there wasn't rainy days, right?
Yep.
So you just got to think like you guys did all that work together, and almost like if you're talking about 1920, I mean, you guys were almost forced to stay together and figure it out, like during COVID.
Yep.
I mean I mean that just perfect timing of
Yeah.
work it out. You
Yep.
guys are stuck together.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys were able to work it out, and honestly, I'm glad you guys have handled the situation how you guys have handled it, because you guys handled it, whether it was conscious or unconscious. You know, you guys handled it in a way that most people don't handle
Hmm.
conflict or change or obstacles. And I think that's a huge thing that you guys just naturally have,
Hmm.
because the life of an entrepreneur is not an easy one for the entrepreneur, but it's also not easy for the family. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I talk to a lot of people. And, we always talk about their family and how their family contributes and stuff. So that is, you guys are almost like tackling two obstacles at the same time: new
Yeah.
lifestyle, and you're an entrepreneur, and that
Yep.
whole scheduling and all that kind of stuff. So how does your family play a role in like your business? Does your wife do something else?
So my wife is working to become a life coach, and her specialty or things like that is spiritual abuse, and she's a natural coach, and I mean, just some of the stories that I've shared, you can get the sense, like, very empathetic, things like that. She helps in my business somewhat, but the rest of so I've got 3 kids. My daughter just turned 19 today. She just graduated high school, and 6 months before she graduated high school, she bought a coffee trailer and became an entrepreneur herself. So she juggled that in school and got that done, and now she's rocking and rolling, has a little coffee trailer, and just is loving life. My son he's involved in the business. He helps me answer phones, does quoting for me, stuff like that, helps me with processes. And then we've got our younger son in middle school. So we're just, we're very close, and we do life together.
No, I
So
mean that's awesome. I mean, your
yeah,
dad showed you and gave you that inspiration to be an entrepreneur, and I mean, you
yeah,
paid it forward for your daughter, so that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
That's huge. And I mean, I think it's so cool because some entrepreneurs, some kids of entrepreneurs or business owners, like they feel almost entitled to their parents' business and so forth. Like I've had friends growing up over the years that they're like, I'm going to run this, when I'm older. And it's like, you could, but you could do other stuff, like, and so I think it's so cool that one, your dad kind of let you do your own thing, which kind of instilled some values, and your daughter saw what you do, how you do it, and
hmm,
saw your work ethic and got the courage to start her own business in a completely different industry.
yeah,
So I think that's so awesome, and I mean, you got to give yourself a pat on the back for that, because that just shows the kind of work ethic, the kind of integrity, and perseverance that you and your wife have instilled in your children to do those things.
hmm,
I have a 2-year-old, and I hope that she is similar. Like, I don't care if she wants to work in my business and the franchise and all that kind of stuff, but if she wants to do her own thing, if she wants to get a career, like, I just want her to have those work ethics
yeah,
and skills instilled within her.
yeah. That's great.
So what so with your wife being a life coach, I mean, she definitely has the resume to do so. Like, certification or not,
Right.
like some, like, even when we're hiring trainers for our gym, right? I tell people that, certifications and stuff don't really mean that much to me. Yes, it does for insurance purposes, but I've met so many trainers over the years that don't have any like actual accreditations, yet they know more knowledge than the average trainer. So your wife going that path with the life coaching, and she's naturally going to have some form of empathy because she's been there, she's done that, and to the degree most people will never fathom. And so I think she'll end up killing it with that, and that business will soar. That's so cool.
That's great.
you know
So, okay, I'm just putting two and two together. So I knew you had franchises, but I didn't realize they were gyms. That's cool because we haven't
yeah.
got to my fitness journey yet.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Let's dive in there. So with that, I mean, you said you and your wife have not only done like work and counseling with each other and stuff, but you guys have focused a lot on personal development.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming some of that is reading or podcasts and stuff. Now that you guys are
Yes,
in
yes, and
normal
yes.
society,
Yeah.
and I mean, did you guys, again, not knowing as much about like the culture that you're in before, but did you guys have like access to podcasts and all that kind of stuff? Because I know you said you snuck out for a walk, man.
Right. So, okay, so we left in 2013 and things like podcasts, I mean, I guess they were coming online at that point. Um, but yeah, podcasts, things like that, we didn't have access to, but books, I mean, man, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read that in 2009. Like, it's interesting. So I'm going to back up to my education with only having an eighth grade education. What I'm grateful for is I've always been curious. I've always loved learning. And I mean, as a third grader, mom would take me to the library and I'd come home with a stack of books a foot and a half high every 2 weeks. And I mean, I was reading autobiographies, biographies, some fiction, but learning about people. And I was always passionate about history. And that's just carried through, whether the medium is books or podcasts. Most of what I do now is listening to stuff as I'm driving and working and things like that. But I've always had that drive to learn something more. And I don't know where it comes from, but I'm really grateful for it because it's rounded out my education and my experience in a way that an actual school hasn't. And I'm grateful for those opportunities.
No, that's awesome. So with that side of personal development, where did your fitness and all that come into play?
So, okay. So in that system, I mean, you can tell it was fairly conservative and alcohol was not a thing. I mean, I had a drink or two when I was a teenager, but never really picked it up until we left. And then, social anxiety, new environments, things like that. I mean, alcohol just felt like this perfect key to lower that anxiety and stress. And I, just it wasn't a big deal for a while, but then in 22, I realized, oh my goodness, like I'm drinking every night, get up in the morning and decided, okay, I'm not going to drink today. I'm going to cut back. And then I just keep going. And it got to a point that it was time to make a change. And so I cut out drink, I tapered back and then was doing some research. I was, dude, it's crazy, but I was like a 40 to 50 drinks a week kind of guy every day. And I mean, I was, I'd put on weight, a lot of weight, and just was feeling lethargic and stuff like that. And then so I cut it back, and I'm listening to Andrew Huberman's podcast about alcohol. And he's like, yeah, a heavy drinker's 15 drinks a week. And I'm like, I mean, my eyes got big and I'm like, 15 drinks a week? Like that's 2 days for me or whatever. And so I decided to cut it out for 3 months and just was still feeling lethargic and stuff. So I went to the doctor thinking, okay, I'm low on testosterone. Like I need to do something about this. Well, yeah, I was low on testosterone, but my A1C, like my diabetic numbers they were up in diabetic range. So that's when I knew I needed to get serious. And I cut out all drinking for 3 months and worked with a lifestyle medicine coaching service, got some education on what to do, and started getting in the gym, did some stuff that I probably wouldn't do again, intermittent fasting, things like that. But in 3 months, I dropped my A1C numbers back down into normal range and dropped. Well, I'm down a total of 85 pounds now, but I mean, I'm not even the weight that's not a great metric anymore. Like I'm working out consistently, tracking my macros, walking, and just I'm a total different person now, and I'm so grateful for it.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, hey, 85 pounds, that's a still a good milestone, you know.
Yeah.
People don't realize, we've had members at our gym that have lost, 200, 300 pounds, like massive numbers for certain members, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even the members that are like, man, I'm down 15 pounds, but I want to be down this. And then sometimes you got to give them that perspective change. You're like, all right, hold this. And you hand them a 15-pound, like a dumbbell. And you're like, you just took this off of your everyday life. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wow. It's like,
Yeah.
but when you think about it in small numbers, or like, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, yeah. But now when you hold it in your hands, you're like, oh, damn, like this came off of me.
Yeah.
So now when you think about 85 pounds, like how many people pick up an 85-pound dumbbell, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight that you were able to take off.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. So how is your drinking now, before I go into what I was going to say?
So I drink when I want to.
Okay.
And that's about at the most 6 drinks a month.
Okay. So a huge change.
I'm a technology guy. I use an app called Sunnyside, and that was a great strategy for me, because I just started tracking, creating a plan every week. It helped me create a plan, and I actually saw how much I was drinking, and then I started cutting back with that. And I mean, now, like, I've figured out where I want to do my drinking. I want to do it with friends. Like I want to have one. I don't want to have 6. I want to have one. I just want to sip on it. And so far it's working for me. Like it would actually, I know that there's some people that total sobriety is the way. For me to totally cut it out would actually take more energy than just having one here every once in a while. But I still use that app, and I still plan out every week, and I still track when I take a drink. So when I say 6, like I've got data to back that up.
That's huge. That is huge. And the reason I say it is because, I mean, going from the lifestyle you're at before, from no alcohol to, being able to have alcohol, as well as it could have been anything else, because when you go from so many restrictions to the world is endless, right? Like you do open yourself up to that possibility, right? So it's not a huge surprise that something like that were to happen.
Yeah.
But what I do want to commend you on is the fact that some people, yes, complete sobriety is the way, but not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
You have to know yourself. Like my mom, she was an alcoholic, and it was one of those things where she tried to do it and she couldn't go, all the way sober. And it wasn't even that she could go partially sober. It was just, it was an everlasting battle that she had.
Yeah.
But with you, like, yourself, and you can, have a couple drinks and not let it go overboard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that shows some of the core values and the personal, habits that you've built up within yourself that not everyone has as well. Right? You know that it's a choice, just like love. It's a choice. If you want to drink, you don't have to have the drink. Right. I'm sure some of it came from, the lifestyle change, the stresses at home. And then it started that way, and it kind of escalated into daily ritual. And then it's one of those things where you have to break a daily ritual, and that becomes one of the hardest things to do when you make that change. So I do commend you on that. I mean, again, I'm not saying you have to be a complete, alcohol free thing. Like I'm a social drinker again, but again, I have to want to drink, and it has to be around the people that I want to drink with. And then even if I do, it's like a drink, maybe 2, but the hangovers are real these days, and I'm not a huge fan of that.
Well, and so with me being a data guy, I have a Garmin watch that tracks my heart rate and variability, and I can take you back without even looking at the other app, and I can show you every night that I've drank, even 1 or 2. Like it jacks with my sleep so bad, and it is not worth it anymore for how I feel on the daily. It's not worth it. But there's been some big tests. Like, so when I went into that 3-month pause, that was February 26th of 2023. And then in March, we went to an all-inclusive resort down in Mexico. And I was talking with my coach on the phone. I'm like, man, I'm going to be there. Like, maybe I should drink a bit. And she's like, Cory, like, how does it settle into your body? How does that feel? And I'm like, you know what? Okay, no, I'm not going to do it. And we got home from that trip and met some friends down there. And the last day before we left for the airport, we're sitting at the bar and I order my water, whatever it was. And they're like, you're not drinking? I'm like, no, I haven't had a drink all week. I've been drinking club soda and pineapple juice. And they're like, dude, you're the life of the party. But that was so empowering to go to be in an environment like that where alcohol was so readily available and just say no. Like, and we're fixing to head to Jamaica this year, here in a couple of weeks. I'll probably have a drink or two. But at that point, it was so much better for me to just stick to that commitment. And then in May of 23, I had an employee fall asleep. And so we do spray foam insulation. And so the rig, the trailer rig that we work out of, had an employee pulling it. He fell asleep and totaled that rig. And so our main source of income, that morning was a regular morning going out to do a job, and they call at 9 o'clock and they're like, we just had something bad happen. And I get, rushed out there, made sure everybody was okay. Thank goodness everybody was okay. Nobody got hurt. And, helped get the rig out of the ditch, realized it was totaled. And I get back from that and I heading back to the office and like, okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to drink. Like, I can't handle this. And then I'm like, no, I'm not. I feel great. I've got to learn how to handle the good times and the bad times without alcohol. And I'm going to stick to my plan. The only thing I did that night is I had an apple with peanut butter as my reward or whatever for getting through the day. But other than that, I stuck to my plan. And so it hadn't been all uphill. Like, there's been some tests to it, and there's still uncomfortable times where I'm like, okay, yeah, I see why I drank in situations like this. But there's so many lessons to learn through that all. So,
no, yeah. I mean, it's just finding your outlet, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what is your outlet for, facing a problem or facing an obstacle or, something like that happening? Do you have a natural like outlet that you do?
So what I'm finding is movement is a massive thing. Just breathe, take a walk, go work out, go get I love lifting heavy stuff. I love my strength training, go get a good workout in, even if it's just a trigger session or whatever. So I turn to movement more. Evenings, if I'm craving that ritual, because what I've realized is part of drinking for me was the ritual of going out to the fridge and grabbing that beer, setting up my bourbon, getting that big rock and pouring the bourbon over it and smelling it. Like, there was ritual to it, right? And now my ritual is I'll make a cup of hot tea and sip on that and really enjoy the ritual of making that. Reaching out for connection with others rather than isolating and drinking my feelings away. And then just realizing that some of this stuff is feelings and I'm going to feel different in 90 seconds. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. That's huge. I mean, not letting one event that happened that took 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even an hour of your day affects the rest of, your day.
Yeah.
You drove out to that wreck with your trailer, that maybe it took, let's say, an hour between you there getting there and back. You saw 23 other hours in the day.
Yeah.
That one event, now it's like, okay, let's just solve the problem. And I know for me, like, my outlet is working out. So any obstacle or any problem we face in the business or anything like that, we need to come up with a new section of the business. Like, I'm not naturally, like, I love my strength training. I'm not naturally a runner, but I know if I go outdoors and go on like a light run and just put on a podcast mainly for just to be noise.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually I'll have a solution by the time I get back.
Yeah.
You just got to have that time that's going to be a positive versus a negative, right? Drinking is only going to subside the worries or subside the stress. And then you're going to wake up, not feel as great. And then you still have that same problem or same stress.
Man, the interesting part to me though is, and I've dabbled in that this year, of that same addictive mindset. I can put that into fitness. I can put that into strength training, and it's healthier, but it's still the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's what's fascinating to me.
Yep. I mean,
So,
it is they say it's a trait, which I do agree with to a sense, but I think it's just like you said, it's a ritual, right?
mhm.
It's a habit. And
Yeah.
so you either create a habit that you like and you want to repeat doing, or you don't, right? So if
Mhm.
you liked the sense of going to the fridge, opening the beer or opening the bourbon and putting the rock, or if you like walking to the gym, putting your headphones on, like it's the ritual. Like it's for the gym thing, everyone, it's always the hardest to get to the gym. And then once you're
Mhm.
at the gym, it's like
Yeah.
that first set might be hard. Then after that, you're in your game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For me, like my favorite part is walking into the gym and putting my headphones on. And I always have like one or two songs as my first songs that I like play. And I'm not even lifting anything
Okay.
yet, you know? So it's like that's the same little ritual, you know, and it's now you're in your peace zone, right? You know, everything else is kind of quieted on the outside, and now you can just kind of clear your head. So I think that's awesome that you do that.
Man, I love that. Because you're talking about you're in your zone and you're at peace. Like because I've tried to, walking into heavy metal and just like getting that adrenaline up and just diving headfirst into that workout. And that's not the mindset where I get the most benefit out of a workout. Like rather slow it down. Yeah, we're gonna lift heavy stuff today, but just get in that zone. I so love the way you put that.
Yeah, like usually my first song walking to the gym, honestly, is not a song you would lift to. It's literally just it's either and people like laugh all the time. It's either a country, it's either a hip hop or something else that just has like a solid beat or like
Yeah.
flow to
Yeah.
it. And then you just kind of like you're like vibes coming in like, oh yeah, we're here. And
Yeah.
then when I sit down on the machine and the plates are loaded, or on the bench the plates are loaded, then I switch over to all right, let's go time. And then it's like a whole,
Wow.
it's almost like another mask that gets put on, and it's like, all right, now we're here to do some
Oh, that's
work,
cool.
So
That's cool.
it's almost like the commercial or the intro in, and then it's like boom, game time, you know. So that's how I do it. I mean, I've always done it kind of that way, and it's that's why I have to wear headphones, because if people heard the music that I was listening walking in, they'd be like, what the hell are you listening to? And it's like I'm not listening
Do
to
you
music
even
for,
lift, bro?
yeah, it's like I'm not listening to this for the motivation. Like this is my transition song,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like that the fighters and like the UFC, they have their walkout song. Like it's like that walkout song that you just kind of now we're transitioning the mindset, and then boom, let's get it.
Let's go.
So what's with your personal development, with your working out and all that kind of stuff, what's next for you? What are you planning to do with the business? I know you got a vacation coming up, but what are the next steps that you have going on in your journey?
So I am less than a month into Real Business Owners to the mastermind, and I am so looking forward to just journeying more on that. I've had one of the accountability calls, and I've committed to working on my systems and processes. My goal is to have 5 videos shot before the next call. And so what's really fascinating, I've always been a guy like motivation and inspiration, and like I'll go straight up for 2 days and then nothing kind of guy. And so like my health and fitness and drinking journey, all of that has taught me the value of a plan and just sticking with that. And that's what I'm like, and it's kind of fascinating. Like my business has done okay, better at other times than not. But what I'm seeing is that what I need to hit the next level is systems, processes, knowing where I'm at every month. Like so I'm the like I'm the owner and I'm the sales guy in my company. I've got a crew's doing the work. But this year I've got sales metrics. Okay, here's what I want to hit this year in revenue. Here's my close rate. Here's what I need to be sending out in estimates every month or every week. Here's what I need to be getting accepted as quotes to hit those. And dude, it's mind blowing to me still just how a few simple tweaks like that, what kind of return I'm seeing on that. And so that's my goal, is just to continue that.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge step. And I mean, you've already done it on your personal side. Now it's, again, just transitioning to the business side.
Yeah. It's the same mindset. So it's just a different arena.
So before we wrap up, I like to ask one question, right? A hypothetical question. And I'll start off by saying it's not a tombstone. Okay. It's a legacy wall, right? On this legacy wall, let's say everything that you've established, everything that you've, been on, all that kind of stuff is erased. You get to leave one message on this legacy wall. What would your message be?
You can change. You're not the story that was given to you.
And that, honestly, I think that's like a mic drop one, and it's true. And your story alone speaks testaments to that.
Yeah.
You're not, just because you were born into a certain position, certain aspect of your life, doesn't mean that that's where you're meant to be or have to be. Right? So that's awesome. Well, Cory, I thank you so much for taking the time out and coming on today. If you never ever need anything, always feel free to reach out. But thank you again for taking the time out to hop on the Mindset Cafe.
Man, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this, and keep doing what you're doing. This is awesome.
No, I appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Cause in the game of life, mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking.